Andrew, good to see you.
Good to see you, Sam.
So today we're going to talk about how to become an accountant. So obviously you're a partner here at Macintyre Hudson, and what I wanted to do is find out how you got to become an accountant, what motivated you. So if you can start off just by telling us that journey from school through to becoming an accountant.
Okay, thanks, Sam. So at school, I was fortunate enough to meet someone from the ICAW, which is the Institute of Chartered Accountants.
Okay.
They came round, spoke to me at school about what it was like to be an accountant. It sounded really good, so I wanted to get an apprenticeship. Brutally honest with you, couldn't find an apprenticeship at that particular time, and sort of fell into my sort of continued work at Tesco, doing stock control. It was only after a few months doing stock control I realised that I really wanted to become an accountant and pursued to find my apprenticeship.
Okay.
And it was through that I eventually became a trainee accountant with a small firm where I live.
So what kind of qualifications do you kind of work towards?
So basically, once you start training to be an accountant, the end goal is always to become in that qualified position, to have that statute of being a qualified accountant. So for me, that was really important when I first started, is actually working my way towards the qualification. In terms of what you need, well, there's two main routes. There's a route where you'll finish your A-levels and then go on to start your education as an accountant.
Okay.
Or the second route where you finish your university degree and then go on to accountancy afterwards. Both routes are possible, slightly different training, but at the end of the day, that's the general norm.
Okay. And how long's the training?
Training can vary, so I would say if you're coming from school, expect the training to be sort of 3 to 4 years before you become qualified. Coming from a graduate position, probably in somewhere between 2.5 and 3 years.
Okay. And in that period of training, I guess you get pretty heavily involved with sort of the day-to-day operations of accountancy and getting stuck into accounts and things like that.
Absolutely. I think it depends upon which firm you're at.
Okay.
I was quite lucky that I joined sort of medium-sized firms, so therefore I saw a very broad range of businesses, worked on lots of clients, really, I suppose, defining my skills as being an accountant. I think I was quite fortunate and quite lucky that I did that. If I'd been at a larger firm, then potentially I might have been a little bit more sector focused in my career when I was becoming a trainee, whereas I feel I've had a very broad understanding. So yeah, I think a medium-sized firm is perfect for that.
Okay, good. And so now you're a partner. So after your training, obviously, how long has it taken you to kind of complete your training to now when you've become a partner?
First thing is you never stop learning.
Okay.
Legislation continues to change and will always do so. That's kind of a big advantage for any accountant, because as legislation changes, that brings with it business opportunities. So actually for me, this is all good news. I think in terms of becoming a partner, I was always ambitious, and I wanted to get to that end goal, if you like, as soon as possible. For me, that's not always the end. Actually, becoming a partner is just another stage in my career of what I want to achieve. But realistically, I think if you are qualified, you should be looking at 5 years plus to becoming that partner.
Okay. What sort of skills do you think it takes being an accountant and a partner? Are they the same kind of skills, or is there a sort of a different set to becoming an accountant and a different set sort of required to take that step to partner level?
I think it's an eye-opener when I became a partner. When you're an accountant, you're very focused on delivering the job well, doing a great job, working with a team. That's really important. But your focus, if you like, is on the work delivery, and towards qualification there will be far more client interaction. When you become a partner, for me, it changes your career, because not only are you now having to look after staff and bring in work, deal with clients, there's far more to being a partner than what it is when you're just an accountant. Far more pressures on your time, I suppose really you just tend to get pulled everywhere a lot more.
Okay.
For me, that's the exciting bit, because actually I like to grow the business, I like to focus on the future, and as a partner you can really change that. You can really influence the way the firm goes, whereas as a normal accountant who's working in a team, it's a little bit more difficult.
Okay. And what about the skills? What particular skills do you think you need to possess or to learn to kind of to get there?
I think there's a slight miscommunication or misunderstanding really. Most people think that an accountant's really good at maths.
Right.
And I put my hand on heart and say that is not the case. An accountant does not need to be good at maths, because in this day and age, very few people do calculations in their head.
Yeah, that's
most
a very point. Yeah.
Most of them are done on a computer or a calculator. Long are the days gone where we draft anything manually. Everything's now digitalised. So for me, having a basic understanding of numbers is really important. I think then applied that with the logic of understanding way numbers come together. So understanding patterns, formulas, those sorts of things. I think that's really important being an accountant. The other skill, which I think is slightly underrated really, is actually the people skills. I think they are core skills. You have to have great people skills, dealing with clients, dealing with staff. All those soft skill areas I think are really important when you become an accountant. And surprisingly for me, the other thing was you have to be fairly good with words. Okay. You have to be able to read English really well, understand some of the legislation, but then also be able to reapply that in a letter back to a client or an email back to a client. So actually for me, a good understanding of English is really important too.
Okay. And what about motivations? What's your motivation? What gets you up in the morning and driven to crack on and get to that partner level?
It's a really good question, Sam. I think without question, what motivates me is my family. My kids at home and my wife, that's definitely what drives me every day. There are a few other things in terms of my actual work though that will drive me. I'm not actually that motivated by salary or profit. That's a sort of a given, if you like, for me, that actually the salary or profit has to be reasonable. For me, what drives me is reputation. Okay. Becoming the best accountant I can really is what drives me every day, and that's what sparks me into doing what I do.
Oh, fair enough. And what about top tips? So, if there's someone thinking about going into the world of accountancy, what would you suggest to them? What would your top tips be to get into to become a partner in an accountancy firm?
It's a great question, and it's a question that I continually live by, actually. So the first thing I've always done is always do my boss's job. I think for me that's really important. Cutting out what he does, understanding what he does. For me, that's what's driven me up to becoming a partner as at today. Probably the other thing I'd say is learning from the past. So learning from other jobs, other things I've seen, and reapplying that to my day job. Okay. I always like to do that. Got another top tip I'd probably say is thinking outside the box. So sometimes when I'm preparing for a client meeting, I like to put myself in the client's shoes, like to think about it from their perspective, and for me that really is something which helps change, change my the way I deal with clients and the way I think about things before the meeting or before I put it in writing.
Okay. And so in terms of what's next then, because obviously you're doing really well, you're at partner level, you're in a good sized firm, you've got a lot of staff to manage. What are you going for next? What are you striving for next?
My career has never, I've always been ambitious in my career, and for me, as I said, becoming a partner was just the first stage. And for me, there's lots of things I'd like to achieve still. I think the thing that drives me most at the moment is the reputation. I want a great reputation within the firm, great reputation within the network, but probably also great reputation within the industry. And that's the bit that keeps driving me. I feel that the next stage for me in my development is to continue building on that and perhaps to get myself a little bit more known in the industry.
Okay, great stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time, Andrew. Pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, good to see you, Sam.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.